Hey everyone, Felix from Nintendo Life here, and the Switch 1, now should we call it, has been home to thousands and thousands of games. But now with the Switch 2 on the horizon, I thought it would be fun to look back at some games that really defined the Switch. Now, I must be completely honest, pinpointing exactly what games to include was very tough because what exactly is defining? Well, this list is my best bet on it. I tried to include games that covered all different bases, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. The first game I have on the list is, well, maybe the reason you got the Switch. It's Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, this game also came out on the Wii U, but this was the reason to get a Switch initially. Sure, we did get other games down the line like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but there was nothing else like Zelda Breath of the Wild at the time. My personal favorite game of all time, this is a magical experience, a huge open world to explore and a new direction for the Zelda series. I knew some people that later down the line wanted to get a Switch just to play Breath of the Wild, even though many years had passed and there was many new games on the Switch, simply because it is such a fantastic game. But you know what also is a fantastic game is the next game on the list, Super Mario Odyssey. Now, this game also released in the first year of the Switch, and to me, why it's so defining? Well, for one, it's Super Mario Odyssey, and secondly, it just showcased how strong the Switch's game lineup would be. Having Breath of the Wild and following it up by Mario Odyssey later down the year, that is exceptional. It had been a long time since we'd had a true 3D Mario game. Yes, we'd had Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, but those were more small levels instead of these open areas where you go around and collecting shines, stars, or moons in Mario Odyssey. Everything is top-notch, and the stage is set from the very first second when you fight Bowser on a big airship over the Mushroom Kingdom. Mario gets sent flying off, and it's his job to try and save the princess once more. You'll come across so many original NPCs, traverse these fantastic worlds, and yeah, there's a reason why Mario Odyssey is also one of my favorite games of all time. Next up, we have a game that I feel is very defining because it showcased that Nintendo are still willing to get weird. It's Ring Fit Adventure. Now, if you don't know what Ring Fit Adventure is, it's right there in the name. Ring Fit Adventure. Make your training exercise adventurous. It's like the continued spirit of Wii Fit, but now made into a proper game with a story. I was surprised of just how polished the experience was, how hard it was actually to push in the rings, and how exhausted I was after my first workout, probably a reason to why I didn't play it that much. Now that we're talking about weird Nintendo accessories, I do want to have an honorable mention for Nintendo Labo. Now, it didn't do very well, and I don't know if it's defining of the Switch, but it was Nintendo trying something new. This time it was expensive cardboard, but there was some really innovative ideas here, and I think it's still really cool that Nintendo made it. But you know, another game which I'm very glad made it to the Switch in the first place is one of those impossible ports, The Witcher 3. Now, at the time when The Witcher 3 was on the Switch, that was my only way of playing it. Sure, it looks way better on a PlayStation or a good spec'd up PC, but being able to play it on the Switch is a miracle itself. Now, The Witcher 3 wasn't the only great port that made it to the Switch, but I felt it was really an eye-opener to, wow, if this can run on the Switch, then what's next? Because the Switch is not a very powerful console. So to me, why it's defining is just how much people could get out of this very outdated console. And outdated or not, it all brought us together when the pandemic hit back in 2020. And there was one game to save us, and it was Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, this might be the most defining game to me, at least, on the Switch, just because you were spending every single day locked inside for a month, at least in my case, waking up, booting on the Switch, and having a fantastic time. Sure, Animal Crossing New Horizons might have had a bit of a sour taste over the years because the NPCs are very one note, or it doesn't have as much personality as previous Animal Crossing games, but I will still hold it very dear to my heart. It's my most played, actually my second most played game. My most played game is later down the list. Yeah, I've just spent countless hours terraforming away, hoping that my turnip prices are high, and probably my favorite moments in the game was actually in the start, where you would just go to near one of the trees and just hear the wind in the trees, in the grass. It was a magical time. You really had to be there to understand just how special Animal Crossing was in that first month. But moving on, we're going from great 3D models to pixelated HD 2D sprites, and it's Octopath Traveler. This was the first time that Square Enix tried the HD 2D art style, which has now become a staple of a lot of more games. Now, this was a Switch exclusive initially, and it was one of my first JRPGs. And the way it's all structured is that you're these 8 travelers, and you're following these 8 completely different stories that don't really have much to do with each other. I mean, that's also one of the complaints of the game, is that, well, there was not more connection, and a lot of those criticisms were heard in the sequel, Octopath Traveler 2, which I think is superior in every way, but it just didn't land as hard because Octopath Traveler was just something completely new. But another JRPG, well, a JRPG series that really found its footing on the Switch was the Xenoblade Chronicle series. First, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, then a beautiful remake / remaster of Xenoblade Chronicles, then Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and now we're getting finally Xenoblade Chronicles X. 4 brilliant games. I've only played one of them and I can't wait to play the rest because the first one, it was magical, it was wonderful. I can remember when I booted it up for the first time and just sat staring at that magical title screen. In the first game, you're running around on these 2 giants and you'll come across all sorts of things that I just haven't seen in other video games. The stories will take twists and turns that will leave you mouth open, not believing what you're seeing. And if you haven't played the games, please do stick with the first one. It might be slow in some places and the combat might be tedious, but if you can push through, you're about to experience one of the best stories in video games, period. But also a reason why the Xenoblade Chronicles series is on the list is because to me, it's really defining not just for the Xenoblade Chronicles series, but just a lot of games finally found their footing on the Switch because it was so popular, it was portable, it was accessible, that, yeah, I felt like every game that would finally get a release on Switch would just be the best selling one. And yeah, I'm just very grateful for the Switch that we could finally see a lot of these franchises blossom. Now, something that you might also see blossom are crops in the next game we're going to be talking about, and it's Stardew Valley. Now, Stardew Valley is great on the computer, but being able to take the game on the go on a proper console, not just on your teeny tiny phone, well, that was something special when it came to the Switch. It's a farming simulator, and to me it started a chain reaction that in future directs we would just see so many farming simulators that were trying to reach the glory that was Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is one of the best games I've played. I've bonded with my brother over it, and I've got completely sucked into the gameplay loop of waking up, watering your crops, going into town, making relations with the people living there. Now, a few months back, I got the incredible opportunity to actually interview the creator of this game, which made my one person Concerned Ape, and I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. And there we talked about games that he plays outside of Stardew Valley, and one of the games he listed, which he said might be a bit controversial, is also on this list, and that is Fortnite. Now, I know what you're saying right now. Fortnite? No, that's nothing to do with the Switch. But I kid you not, how many small people, I know, some people call them kids, that have a Switch only because of Fortnite. And they only play Fortnite on it. The reason to me why it's defining is that Fortnite made the Switch mainstream for a lot of people because it was the cheapest console of the 3 PlayStation, Xbox, and the Switch, and it could run Fortnite. That was enough for parents to grab it and get it to their kids. They didn't have to be glued to the TV, they could take it with them to their room. And even though I don't really like Fortnite, I must admit that Fortnite is the reason why the Switch was very popular with a lot of young folks, even though we don't like to admit it. But you know, what I do want to admit is that the next game is a brilliant indie game. Now, we did talk about one indie game, which was Stardew Valley, and to me, that was defining because just when I think the Switch, I think farming simulators. But the next one is on the list because there was just so many great indies on the Switch. And this one is, to me, the best one, and it came out fairly early in the Switch's life cycle. It's Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is a work of art. It's grueling and difficult at some places, and beautiful and mesmerizing in others. Coming out only 1 year after the Switch launched had a great impact to just how popular this game was on the Switch. I remember seeing one of my friends playing it in school, and me not really being a computer gamer, I wanted to play it on a console, and the Switch was the only one I had at the time. And since it had come out so early in the life cycle, meant that I could get it, and it's a really cheap game. For the price, you get so many hours of entertainment. Now, did you know that actually Hollow Knight was supposed to release on the Wii U? Yes, back on the Kickstarter, they had a Wii U tier, which was later replaced for the Switch because, well, we all know what happened to the Wii U. But Hollow Knight was only one of countless great indie games on Switch. When I think the Switch, it's not just the big 3D Mario, 3D Zelda, it is also the indies. And one of the reasons they did so well on the Switch was because they didn't need as much power, so they could run all handy dandy, where big AAA games on the PlayStation really struggle to run on the little tablet. But a big AAA game that does run on the Switch flawlessly, I mean, it is a Nintendo game, but still, this game is just phenomenally optimized. It's Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And the reason I think it's defining is maybe not because of the game. Yes, the game is fantastic, but it's because of the way they released the character reveal trailers. Now, this was an event on the internet every time there was one. This could be in a direct, this could be its own showcase, but it was just incredible every time it happened. All the reactions on the internet. When Steve got announced, it crashed Twitter. It was an event to partake in, which I really do hope happens again when the next Smash Bros. Game comes out. A brilliant marketing strategy to get people talking about Smash Bros. Again and again, drip feeding us the characters little by little, and giving us one of the biggest character rosters ever seen in a fighting game. Now, I am lucky that I found characters that I really want to play with, but for newcomers, I can understand why you would freeze looking at a roster like this. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about my most played game on the Switch, and this is the game, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I've played it in school, I've played it at work with Alex. It is just such a fun game to pick up, play a little bit, and then put down, and then you can come back. Sure, you might get a bit rusty, but you find your footing quick. And another game where you must be quick is in F-Zero 99. Now, this is not only F-Zero 99, I'm just bundling it together with also Tetris 99, Super Mario Bros. 35, you know, just those types of games. F-Zero 99 was just the game I played the most, so that's the game I'm going to talk about. These big numbered players via NSO were also very defining, for me at least, to the Switch, because even though Nintendo is still very much behind on the online aspect of games, it was their take on a battle royale, which I think was really well executed, at least with F-Zero 99. I just poured hours into this game. I got completely obsessed with it, figuring out the best routes on these maps, figuring out what cards could beat all the other players. And I am quite proud to say that I won 18 times, which I know is baby numbers compared to other players. But yeah, I'm just glad that I even managed to win once, because it is a grueling hard game. And now with Mario Kart on the horizon, where we see 24 players, are they going to take inspiration from this brilliant eliminatory format where you start with a lot of players and then race by race there will be less and less players? Either they get knocked out or you just don't get in the threshold, which will go up and up, like down and down in numbers as we go. And actually, talking about Mario Kart, why don't we also bring it onto the list, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is of course also a very Nintendo Switch defining game. Now, this game is a Wii U game, but it got ported over and then just became the best-selling game on the Switch. If you had a Switch, there was probably a very big chance you also had Mario Kart. Mario Kart was the reason I got a Switch. I had played Mario Kart Wii growing up. I had not played Mario Kart 7 or Mario Kart 8 because I didn't have a 3DS or a Wii U. So when it came to Switch, I was just like, yes, I'm sold. I remember seeing the trailer where we saw the battle mode, which that was a new thing in this game. Even though I didn't play it much, it was still nice that they were taking this game and just making it perfection, because that is almost what you can call this game. And then later down the line, when we thought that, oh, are they going to release a new Mario Kart? They just throw DLC at us and double the track count to 96 tracks. The biggest track selection in any Mario Kart game by far. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is also here on the list because the Switch was a time of porting over Wii U games and just older games in general, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was just the way to do it, and of course it paid off tremendously well for Nintendo. Now, since the original Mario Kart 8 came out, it has been 10 years, so I myself am a bit fatigued of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I played this game online so much. When I got friends over, that was the game we put on. When I went to school, that was the game I showed off to show how cool the Switch was. But a game that I probably wouldn't show on my Switch to show how cool it is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, this is not a game that is here because it's very good. It is a game that's here because it defined that the Switch, well, it's not a very powerful console. Sure, it's up to the developers to get the most out of this hardware, but also Nintendo's own games themselves. You would see just things in the horizon, chopping, and here, well, to me, it was just the drop in the bucket that I really just want better hardware. Now, sure, there are good games to be had here, but Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are so horribly optimized, and it was something that we saw more and more as the years progressed on the Switch, just that people were having a hard time optimizing their games on the Switch, mainly because it is a very old and outdated console. There was a lot of games that just couldn't come to Switch because it wasn't powerful enough, which is really something I hope the next Switch will improve on. Make it easier for developers to get their games running good on Switch and just see Nintendo's games even in higher fidelity and quality. But one game that really was optimized very good on the Switch and looks incredible even though it came out quite late in its life cycle is Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Now, this was finally a branch from the new Super Mario Bros. Games that had left us a bit fatigued. It was so colorful, so squatch and stretchy, so full of inventive ideas. I mean, the wonder effects. It was like you started thinking, can they make a new inventive Mario game like they have done in the past? And the answer is yes. Yes, they absolutely can. They absolutely can. And we can see some of the animation or like the art style even carry over to, for example, the new Mario Kart game that also has more squash and stretch. Mario Bros. Wonder was to me just really what the Switch needed and was an example that you can really get so much out of that little tablet. And there you have it. Those were some games that I felt defined the Switch for one reason or another. Of course, I had to make some cuts in the end, so if there were any games that you felt defined the Switch but you didn't see here in this video, let us know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click that subscribe button so that in the future you can be notified when we put out a video, Games That Defined the Switch 2. It might be a while before we release that one, but you'll be ready for when the day comes. And also, don't forget to check out our website, Nintendo.com, for all sorts of Nintendo-related content. Stay safe, play some defining games on your Nintendo Switch, and we'll see you in the next one. Felix from Nintendo Life, out.